My name is Claire Delaney, and for most of my childhood, I believed that the quieter you were, the safer you were. I grew up in Mariners Bay, a postcard town on the New England coast, the kind with white fences, sleepy diners, and summer fairs where everyone knew who made the best blueberry pie. People smiled at each other on the street. They waved from cars. It was the kind of town that seemed too small for secrets. Our house sat on a gentle hill that sloped toward the water, white paint that chipped in the corners, a porch swing that creaked when the wind picked up, a swing set in the backyard, rusty now, its chains whispering with the breeze. From the outside, our family looked perfect, whole, warm, smiling for the holiday cards. Inside, I was the youngest of 3 girls. Isabel, the oldest, was lightning in a bottle, straight-A student, debate team captain, the kind of girl who corrected teachers and still got applauded for it. Tara, the middle child, was the beauty, the dancer, the singer, the star of every school play. When she walked into a room, people noticed. And then there was me. I wasn't loud. I wasn't dazzling. I didn't demand anything. I did what was expected. Homework done, bed made, lunch packed neatly. I didn't slam doors or throw tantrums. I didn't have strong opinions about what cereal to buy or what movie to watch. I was agreeable, easy, small. And in the quietness of my own making, I began to disappear. At dinner, Isabel would argue politics with Dad, fast and fiery, her hands slicing through the air like punctuation. Tara would talk about auditions or parties or who liked whom. Mom would lean in, laughing, pouring more iced tea. And me? I'd pass the salt, smile, nod when someone looked my way. Which wasn't often. Sometimes I'd try to speak, maybe about a book I liked or something I'd noticed that day, but my voice always felt too soft, too slow, like I'd missed the moment. After a while, I stopped trying. I don't think they meant to forget me. Not really, it's just, when you never ask to be seen, people forget to look. I thought being invisible meant I was safe, that if I stayed small enough, quiet enough, I'd never get hurt. But I was wrong, because silence isn't safety. It's just a different kind of prison. By the time I entered high school, I'd fully embraced the idea of silence as a shield. I'd learned to survive on the outskirts, observing rather than participating. I stopped expecting to be asked how I was or what I thought. Instead, I became the girl who noticed things others didn't. Cracks in the sidewalk shaped like lightning, a leaf spinning perfectly in the wind, a spider weaving between fence posts at dawn. I started carrying a camera, an old film one I found in the attic, still smelling faintly of dust and time. Photography became my way of speaking without sound. When I looked through that lens, I felt less invisible, more present, more real. At school, I joined the art club, not because anyone invited me, but because the door was open and no one told me to leave. I'd spend lunch hours developing film in the darkroom, my fingers smelling like Fixer, the red light casting long shadows. I liked it there. It was quiet, predictable, safe. Tara by then was a senior and untouchable. She ruled the hallways without trying. Homecoming queen, dance team captain, lead in the school play. Everyone loved her, including her boyfriend, Liam Calloway. Liam was what most girls swooned over. Tall, sandy blonde, confident in that easy way that boys with too much charm and not enough consequences often are. To others, he was the golden boy. But me? I noticed the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, the way he scanned a room like he owned it, like people were props and he was the only real character. I didn't think much about him until the morning I came to school early to retrieve my photography portfolio. I'd left it in the darkroom the day before, and a mild panic had dragged me out of bed before sunrise. The school was nearly empty, just the janitor whistling down the hall and the soft hum of vending machines. I liked it that way. Still, peaceful. The art wing was quiet, too quiet. When I pushed open the darkroom door, I froze. He was already inside. Liam stood by the counter, arms folded like he'd been waiting. I blinked. Oh, I just need to grab my... Tara says you're like a ghost, he interrupted, his voice casual. Said you float around. Don't talk to anyone. Thought I'd see for myself." I forced a polite laugh. It was instinct, my default when things felt uncertain. A smile could be armor, too. He took a step forward, then another. Something in the air shifted, subtle, but sharp, like the moment right before a storm. "Didn't expect you to be cute," he added, eyes narrowing slightly. I backed up instinctively, bumping into the table behind me. My mouth opened to say something, anything, but no sound came. He was close now, too close. I felt the wall at my back, the smell of chemicals thick in the air, and his breath warm against my cheek. His hand came down, not hard but firm, gripping my arm, pinning me in place. "You don't talk much, huh?" he said, his tone suddenly thin and sharp. My heart raced. I felt frozen, like prey, like if I didn't move or speak or breathe, maybe he'd just stop. Then he shoved me, not hard enough to leave a bruise, just enough to send me stumbling back into the metal shelves. My head struck the corner. A loud clang of trays and gear crashed around us. My ears rang. He laughed. That soft, amused kind of laugh people make when they know there'll be no consequences. And then he was gone. Just like that. Gone. Like it never happened. But it did. I sat on the floor for a while, knees to my chest, waiting for the ringing in my ears to fade, for the world to make sense again. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't run to the principal's office, because somewhere deep inside I already knew what people would say. Maybe he didn't mean it. "Are you sure you're not overreacting? He's Tara's boyfriend. Why would he hurt you?" And worst of all, she's shy. Maybe she just misunderstood. So I did what I always did. I said nothing. I went to class, head down, and spent the rest of the day pretending to be fine. But something inside me had shifted. A hairline crack. A whisper of something I hadn't felt before. Anger. Not just at Liam, but at myself, for being too small, too silent, too invisible. I told myself maybe it was just a bad moment, a misunderstanding. Maybe he was just playing around, but it didn't feel like a game. And when I looked in the mirror that night, I didn't see a girl anymore. I saw a ghost. A few days later, while sorting through an old shoebox of family photos for a school project, I found a picture from years ago. Tara's middle school play. There she was, center stage, arms raised, basking in applause. And there I was, half in the frame, holding a prop off stage, crooked, forgotten, faded in the corner. I stared at it for a long time. That night, I opened my locker and found something strange. Taped to the inside wall was a small USB drive. No name, no note. My fingers trembled as I pulled it down. Back home, I plugged it into my laptop. There was only one file. I clicked play. It was video footage. Grainy, taken from someone's phone in the school parking lot. Liam stood near a car, laughing with two of his friends. Little Delaney didn't even flinch, he was saying, smirking. Tara should thank me. I put the ghost back in her place. Laughter. Then the screen went black. I sat frozen, my palms slick, my breath shallow. I didn't delete it, I didn't even cry. I just stared at the screen, hearing his words echo again and again. I put the ghost back in her place. Except this time, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like someone waking up. I didn't sleep much after watching the video. It kept replaying in my head, over and over. Liam's voice, that smug laugh, the way he called me the ghost. The words clung to me, soaked into my skin like cold rain. I had proof now. But proof, I realized, wasn't always enough. Because the truth doesn't just need to exist. It needs someone brave enough to carry it. I didn't feel brave. I felt sick, afraid, but also alive. And in that strange electric tension, something in me began to shift. I started looking at things differently. At dinner, when Isabel launched into a debate about the mayor's new proposal and Tara gushed about a teacher's compliment, I just watched. Not with sadness this time, but with awareness. They weren't ignoring me on purpose. They simply never expected me to speak, and maybe that had to change. 2 days later, I found myself lingering outside the art room, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. Inside, Ava was sketching quietly by the window. She always stayed late, headphones in, world tuned out. We weren't friends, not exactly, but we'd shared silence before, the kind that didn't feel awkward. A few months earlier, she'd complimented my photography project, said I captured things people usually missed. She saw me, even if just for a moment. That was enough. I walked in, heart pounding, and sat beside her. She looked up, removed one earbud. "Hey," she said softly. "I need to show you something," I said. She didn't ask questions, just nodded. I handed her the USB. When the video ended, she didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just nodded. Then she rolled up the sleeve of her hoodie and showed me her arm. There, fading but still visible, was a yellowish bruise just above her wrist. "Last semester," she said quietly. "He grabbed me in the stairwell." My eyes widened. "Liam?" She nodded once. "Why didn't you—" She cut me off. "Because no one listens to girls like me." Her voice wasn't bitter, just tired, like she'd carried that truth around too long. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "But they might listen to you." I frowned. "Why me? You're Tara's sister, and now you have evidence." That night, we sat side by side on her bedroom floor, laptops open, screens glowing in the dark. The walls were covered in band posters and charcoal sketches. Her cat, Miso, dozed nearby, twitching occasionally in his sleep. We backed up the video to multiple drives, took screenshots, wrote statements. We even made a list of possible names, people who might believe us, teachers, board members, counselors. It wasn't just about me anymore, or Ava. It was about all the girls who kept quiet because they thought they had to. We drafted an anonymous email and attached the files. When we hit send, I felt my chest tighten, like something sacred had left my body. I didn't tell Tara. I wasn't ready. I didn't know what she'd do or say or feel. But deep down, I knew one thing. The truth was on its way to her. The next morning at school, the air felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just heavier. Like the walls knew something was coming. Liam passed me in the hallway. He looked right through me, like always. But this time, I held his gaze. Just for a second. He blinked, then looked away. Later that week, in photography class, I was flipping through old prints for a new project. One caught my eye, a forgotten frame from a birthday party years ago. Tara laughing, wearing a paper crown, surrounded by friends. I was in the corner of the shot, blurry and half-cut from the frame. Something about it struck me. How many times had I been in the picture, but not really? A prop in someone else's moment. A ghost on the edge of the stage. I pinned the photo to the corner of my board, not to forget it, but to remember who I had been, so I could become someone new. 2 days after we sent the email, the school made an announcement. There would be a student conduct hearing the following week. It was vague, careful, full of administrative language, but I knew. It was about Liam, and somehow about me. My parents received a letter. I heard them whispering about it after dinner. Concern, confusion, curiosity. I stayed upstairs. Tara didn't say a word. Did she know? Had she seen it? Heard the recording? Was she angry, ashamed, or just in shock? I lay awake for hours that night staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd done and what might happen next. But in the quiet of my room, with the moon casting soft shadows across the walls, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Not loud, shouting, stomping power, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that says, I know what happened, and I'm not pretending anymore. The week leading up to the hearing felt like standing on the edge of something enormous. Each morning, the school felt just a little different. Hushed in a way that wasn't peaceful, but taut. Tension crackled under locker doors and lingered in whispered glances. People didn't know exactly what had happened, but they sensed something, and I did too. I didn't feel invisible anymore, but I wasn't sure I liked being seen either. I kept my head down, unsure whether people were whispering about Tara or about me, about Liam, or maybe about nothing at all. But that's what fear does. It makes ghosts out of shadows, monsters out of murmurs. Ava stayed close. Not in the clingy way, but just enough that I didn't feel alone in crowded hallways. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. There's a kind of friendship that forms not in laughter, but in shared silence, in survival. 3 days before the hearing, I found something taped to my locker. It was a sticky note, pale yellow, no name. All it said was, "Thank you." At first, I thought it was a mistake, but the next day there was another. "I believe you." Then another. "You're not the only one." They kept coming. Each message was small, no more than a sentence, but they felt heavier than textbooks, stronger than walls. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Other people were carrying things too. That Friday, Ava and I met in the library. She brought her laptop and opened a hidden folder. "More people are coming forward," she said. I looked at the screen. Anonymous messages, some with names, most without, stories, fragments, fears. One girl wrote, "He cornered me in the gym closet. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe it was just flirting gone wrong. But now I know it wasn't my fault." Another said, "I dropped out of theater club after he followed me to my car. Everyone said I was being dramatic." Then, "Thank you for not staying quiet. I wish I had been braver." It was overwhelming, humbling, terrifying, and yet, through all of it, I felt something flicker in my chest, a small, warm ember I hadn't known I carried. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about all the voices swallowed in fear, all the girls who sat in bathrooms trying not to cry, all the quiet ones, the ones who didn't make a fuss, the ones they forgot to listen to, until now. We decided to compile the stories, carefully, thoughtfully. We redacted names unless permission was given. We blurred identifying details, but we made it real, a dossier of voices. It was more than a report. It was a chorus. We included it in a second email, this time directly to the school board with a simple subject line, "We are not invisible." The day before the hearing, Tara cornered me in the kitchen. She had just come back from rehearsal, makeup still smudged under her eyes, hair tied up, looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. She didn't speak at first, just looked at me. Then, quietly, she asked, "Was it true?" I couldn't lie. "Not now." I nodded. She closed her eyes, took a breath. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I know. I should have." "You didn't do it, Tara." "I still should have seen it." Silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I've been the star of every room for so long. I didn't notice who wasn't standing in the spotlight." She placed something on the table. It was the same photo I'd found weeks ago, her on stage, me in the shadows, except now, she had written something on the back. "You were there. I'm sorry I didn't see you." I didn't cry. I just held it, like a fragile thing that still had time to grow. That night, I stared at the ceiling again. But this time, I wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. I was ready. Not because I knew what would happen, but because, for the first time, I wasn't carrying it alone. The hearing was held on a Wednesday afternoon. They picked a room that was usually used for parent-teacher conferences, neutral, clinical, uncomfortable. Pale blue walls, a long rectangular table with too many chairs, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly above us, flickering just enough to make your stomach feel uneasy. I arrived with my parents. My mother wore too much perfume, like she was heading to church. My father was silent, jaw set, eyes unreadable. I walked 2 steps behind them, holding my statement in trembling hands. Inside the room sat the principal, a school board representative, a counselor, and a legal advisor from the district. On the far end, Liam, calm, bored even. Legs stretched out. That smirk he always wore like a tailored suit. Tara sat beside him, though not close. Her arms were crossed, her face pale. I sat opposite. The chair felt too small and too hard, like it had been designed to make you shrink. I didn't let it. The principal began by reviewing the facts of the case, neutral words delivered in a practiced tone. Then they turned to me. "Claire, would you like to share your account?" I stood. My hands shook. I could feel the sweat down my spine. Every eye in the room turned to me, except Liam's. He was looking at the wall. I took a breath, and then I began. "I didn't want this," I said, my voice thinner than I liked. "I didn't ask for it, for the attention, or the chaos, or the fear." I paused, but I'm tired. Tired of being quiet. Tired of being small so others can feel big. Tired of pretending it didn't happen, because it did. I unfolded my statement and began to read. "My name is Claire Delaney. I've spent most of my life trying not to take up space. I thought being easy to live with meant I was safe, that if I was quiet enough, careful enough, no one would hurt me. I was wrong. A few weeks ago, Liam Calloway cornered me in the darkroom. He didn't hit me, he didn't leave bruises, but he touched me without permission. He used his size to intimidate me. He laughed when I flinched, and then he told his friends he put the ghost back in her place. That ghost was me." I looked up. Still, Liam looked away. I continued. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because there are others like me, girls who've been cornered, touched, mocked, forgotten, and they stayed silent because they thought they had to. But we don't. Not anymore." Then I reached into my backpack, pulled out a small speaker, and pressed play. The video echoed across the room. Liam's voice, his laughter, the parking lot, the cruelty. When it ended, no one moved. The silence was thick, heavy, almost holy. Then finally someone spoke. Tara. "He said that," she whispered, her voice cracking. I looked at her. She was crying. Not loudly, not theatrically, but honestly. Her shoulders shook, and in that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt sad. Sad for her, for me, for the years we'd spent living parallel lives without ever really touching. The principal cleared his throat. "We take this very seriously," he said, eyes narrowing at Liam. "There will be disciplinary action pending further review." Liam scoffed. It was a joke. My father stood suddenly, fists clenched. The board member stepped in quickly. "Mr. Calloway, you are suspended pending investigation, effective immediately." Liam's eyes finally met mine, and for the first time I saw something there. Not guilt, not regret, but uncertainty. Like the ground beneath him had cracked just slightly, and he wasn't sure how to fix it. After the hearing, I waited outside while the adults talked. The hallway was quiet, afternoon sun slanting through the high windows. Terry emerged after a few minutes. She walked slowly, like her legs had forgotten how to work. Then she sat down beside me. "I didn't know," she said again. "I believe you." She looked at me. Her eyes were red. "I'm sorry for not seeing you sooner." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded note. "Read this when you're ready." Then she stood and left. I opened it. It was short. "You mattered. Even when I didn't act like you did, you always mattered. T." I folded it carefully and slipped it into my notebook, right next to that old photo, the one from her play, where I stood in the shadows. That night, we had dinner together as a family. No one said much, but for the first time, I noticed something strange. They were looking at me, really looking. Not through me, not past me, at me. And I met every gaze. I didn't shrink. I didn't smile just to make things easier. I just stayed, visible, whole, unapologetically myself. The story didn't end at the hearing. If anything, that was just the beginning. In the days that followed, word spread. Not loudly, not with scandal or drama, but quietly. Like wind through leaves, like a secret too important to stay buried. People started to look at me differently in the hallways, not with pity, not with awe, but with recognition, like they knew, like they understood. It started with a whisper, a glance, a folded note left on my desk. Then came the messages. I heard what you said. Thank you. My sister went through something like that last year. I wish I had spoken up too. The stories trickled in and then poured. Some were confessions, some were simple acknowledgments, but all of them said the same thing in one way or another. I thought I was alone. I wasn't, and neither were they. The school, to its credit, responded. Not overnight, not perfectly, but sincerely. They formed a reform committee, one that included students, real students, not just the overachievers or the debate kids, but the ones who had learned to live in the shadows, the quiet ones, the careful ones. Ava joined. So did I. We met every Tuesday in the library after school. The first few meetings were awkward, like we were all speaking a new language. But soon stories turned into proposals. Complaints turned into changes. We rewrote parts of the student handbook. We created a peer advocacy network, anonymous, confidential, and student-led. We trained staff to recognize subtle signs of harassment, not just the obvious ones. And we started something simple but powerful, a monthly open mic night, a space for truth-telling, for art, for voice, no judgment, no expectations, just presence. When they asked me to speak at the first student assembly, I almost said no. The idea of standing in front of the entire school, every grade, every teacher, every hallway I had once tried to disappear into, made my stomach twist. But then Ava squeezed my hand. "You don't have to," she said, "but you can." That night, I stood in front of the mirror and practiced, not just my words, but standing tall, looking at myself, not flinching, not shrinking. And when the day came, I walked onto that stage, looked out at the rows of students, teachers, friends, and strangers, and I spoke. I used to think being invisible kept me safe, I said. My voice echoed through the auditorium, but it didn't. It just kept me small. I paused. I'm not small anymore. I clicked the remote in my hand. The projector behind me lit up with the first photo. It was one of mine. A girl in shadow, barely visible. Back turned, hair in her face. Then another. A reflection in water, blurry, warped. Then a girl stepping into sunlight, face clear, eyes forward. It was me. My photo series was called The Girl They Almost Forgot. But now it had a new ending, a final photo, a self-portrait. Me, standing in front of the swing set behind our house, arms open, wind in my hair, looking right into the camera, not faded, not hidden, in full focus. That night, after the assembly, students lined up to speak to me. Some just nodded, others hugged, some cried. A few said nothing at all, but the look in their eyes said everything. And somewhere in the middle of that crowded hallway, I realized I didn't just tell my story, I made space for theirs. Ava and I started hanging out more after that, not just for committee meetings or whispered plans, but for long walks by the bay, late-night coffee runs, and shared playlists. We weren't just friends, we were mirrors. She reflected back to me the courage I hadn't known I had, and I did the same for her. One evening, we sat under the old tree by the marina, legs dangling off the dock, the sun melting into the water. "Do you think it'll always be this hard?" I asked. She looked out at the waves. "I think speaking up will always be scary," she said, "but maybe it gets less lonely." She reached over and linked her pinky with mine. And just like that, it wasn't lonely at all. At home, things changed too. My parents still didn't always know what to say, but they were trying. My mom started asking about my day, not out of habit, but with genuine curiosity. My dad once stopped me in the kitchen, hand on my shoulder, and said, You're stronger than I ever knew." Even Isabel, during a rare weekend visit from college, gave me a long hug in the driveway before leaving. "Keep making noise," she whispered. "The world needs more girls like you." And Tara, she started showing up, not in big dramatic ways, but in small, steady ones. She came to one of our open mic nights and sat in the back row. She asked to see my photo prints, helped me pick one for a scholarship contest. She even invited me to lunch once, just the two of us. We weren't best friends, but we weren't strangers anymore. And sometimes that's even more meaningful. Time moved forward. Not quickly, not all at once, but like waves lapping gently at the shore, carving something permanent into the coastline. That's the thing about healing. It's not loud, it's not sudden, it's subtle. Like waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer bracing for something bad to happen, realizing you haven't flinched in days, realizing you laughed and meant it. That was me. Bit by bit, I was becoming someone I hadn't met before. Not a ghost, not a shadow. A girl with a voice. A girl who took up space. A girl who belonged. It was a Saturday evening in late spring when it hit me. I was sitting on the back porch barefoot, my camera resting beside me. The bay in the distance shimmered under the setting sun, turning gold and pink and soft lavender. The swing set in the yard creaked gently in the breeze, the same one from childhood, now rusted but still standing. Tara sat next to me. We weren't talking, just watching. She passed me a glass of lemonade. "I used to think you were just quiet," she said, almost to herself. "But now I know. You were holding too much to speak." I nodded. She looked at me. "I'm proud of you, Claire." I didn't cry. Not this time. I smiled, not to smooth things over, but because it felt real. At our last family dinner before Tara left for college, we all sat around the table, chicken casserole, iced tea, the smell of garlic bread wafting from the oven. There was laughter, a few inside jokes. Isabel was home for the weekend and talked too fast as usual. Dad was in a good mood. Mom kept refilling our glasses. Then, as we started dessert, my father raised his glass. "To Claire," he said, voice clear and full. Everyone turned to me. "The strongest girl I know." My heart fluttered in my chest, but I didn't look away. I didn't shrink. I didn't wave it off. I met every gaze around the table, and I let myself be seen. Fully, later that night, I walked down to the shoreline alone. The water was still. I looked into it, and for the first time in a long time, I saw myself, whole, real, not blurred by fear or shame, not cropped out of the frame. Me. People still called me quiet, but now they said it with respect. Now they saw what I saw. That stillness isn't weakness. That being soft isn't the same as being small. That silence can hold power too. And when the moment comes, when the world needs your voice, speaking can be the loudest, bravest thing you'll ever do. To anyone who's ever been the quiet one, the background one, the easy one, the one who didn't want to take up space. You are not forgettable. You are not invisible. You are not a ghost. You are someone. And the world is brighter because you're in it.